What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Culture FC, the weekly soccer show where we talk all culturally relevant soccer topics that covers lifestyle, fashion, music, politics, everything happening off the pitch and none of the stuff really happening on it. I'm Alan. Louis is here with me. Brendan is not here with us. He is on a lovely vacation to Denmark with his girlfriend, so we wish him safe travels. He's probably having a lot more fun than we are.
Hope he remembers to bring us a scarf for our collection.
Absolutely. This week, we talked about all things music and soccer. We started the conversation off by talking what some of the World Cup highlight songs have been, what they mean to not only the World Cup, but to the fans who are listening to it, the sport of soccer, and everything revolving that. We also discussed what the importance of fan-driven soccer music has on the sport of soccer, what it means for soccer organizations, for fans, for specific regions, and overall, just what kind of impact music has on the sport of soccer. If you like the podcast, make sure you leave us that 5-star review, leave us a positive comment, thumbs up the video if you're watching and not listening, share the podcast with your girlfriend, boyfriend, mother, daughter, sister, brother, whoever it may be that you know that likes the sport of soccer. It really helps us out, grow the channel, grow our podcast, get more relevant information out to you, and lets us know that you may like us. If you want more behind-the-scenes insight on us, follow our Instagram at culturef.c. We post behind-the-scenes stuff, pictures, videos, quotes, interesting things that you may not get to hear or see in the regular podcast. And if you do like us, you'll do us a favor and check out our clothing line. It's run by us, started by us, designed by us. Check out our Instagram at Treblwear, Treblwear. And similarly, check out the website, www.treblwear.com. You can check out all of our clothes, see what we got to offer, and maybe buy a little something for yourself. So that's enough for the intro. Let's get right into the episode.
Topics for this week. First topic is Zinedine Zidane resigning after winning the Champions League. And I wanted to get your thoughts on why,
Yep.
if it was a good idea, and kind of what it means going forward.
Yeah, I think it definitely is a good idea. And normally you think the guy wants to stick with a team that's winning, but there's a lot of things that go behind being a Real Madrid manager, and one of them is kind of like you have to be better than you were the year before. It's kind of hard to top, first of all, winning 3 Champions Leagues in a row. I don't want to say it's impossible for him to do it next season again if he were to stay on, but like the chance of it is so low.
Yeah.
He has a squad that's built of a lot of guys that are creeping up in age. I mean, Ronaldo, Marcelo, his whole back line is getting old. Midfielder's all right. But for him, it's kind of boss. He just leaves the team. He's like, I won a Champions League. I'm going to take a little break. Pull the old Pep Guardiola. I think that's a smart decision on his part. I think the pressures would have been way too high for him next year. If he didn't win the Champions League, it's a failure. Winning the Spanish League would have been great, but again, it's not the Champions League. So I think it was smart on his part.
Well, it's funny because he mentions that winning La Liga last year was actually the highest honor he could have versus the 3 Champions League, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, that's super weird. But at the same time, if you're looking at a League Cup, it kind of reflects your team better overall than a knockout tournament does, because you're playing way more games. It shows that you're consistently good over like a long span of time
versus being on a good run.
Being on a good run in a tournament. I mean, a tournament is just a completely different game almost. So I think as a coach, you can say like, oh, you get winning the Champions League is great, but I was able to get my team to perform at a high level for 38, 36 games, whatever it may be. So I thought that was super interesting too, but when I reflected on what he was saying, it kind of made sense. But still, I mean, I'd rather win a Champions League than a...
Yeah, I mean, it's he's going to go down in history as one of the best managers ever, even though like he was there for 2.5 years. He won 3 Champions Leagues, La Liga, but he's going to go down as not only one of the best Real Madrid players ever, but one of the best managers in the world ever because of that.
Do you think that this makes this team one of the greatest ever to play club football?
I think so, 100%. I think that we say 3 years in a row, but you got to remember too, they've won 4 in 5 years.
Yeah.
So basically the same crew of players that they really haven't switched much since that first Champions League win.
Yeah.
You still have all the same main players. It's been the same group, pretty consistently throughout. And to win 4 Champions Leagues out of 5, you see teams win a Champions League and then the next year barely qualify or miss out on it. It's this crazy thing, and for them to be able to consistently put that out is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
I think for sure it goes down as one of the best club teams ever.
Yeah, I think so too. It's hard to top. I mean, Barcelona fans might disagree, but I think it's kind of crazy to be alive during this era when. We've had a few footballing dynasties with Barcelona when Pep was there, and now with Real Madrid. Seeing that power shift, especially within these two Spanish teams, has been pretty crazy.
Well, what's funny is two things. One, I think that one of the arguments that people could use against Real Madrid, not that I think it holds much water, is like, oh, they never won a treble during this 5-year span. But it's like, okay, they didn't win the treble, but they were able to win 4 out of 5 Champions Leagues, which is already a crazy feat. Versus Barcelona, who won a treble, or Inter, who have won a treble, or Manchester United, who have won a treble. So, these are all phenomenal club sides that will go down in history. But I still think that this Real Madrid team, the fact that they were able to consistently put out the team that they've been putting out for 5 years and win 4 Champions Leagues, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to backtrack and talk about is when thinking about all of this and why Zidane resigned now, I think back to midway through the season, people were talking about Real Madrid being washed up. They were saying that they were already over it. It was, they had been on a great run and they kind of maybe were getting tired of all of this. And as exemplified by the fact that the first half of the season, people were writing off Cristiano Ronaldo already. They were just like, he's over. He's not scoring. And then the man, after a slow start to his season, just turns it up and, he gets. Isn't he the highest goal scorer in Europe, I believe, this year?
I think so. No, I think he needed to score
in the
Champions League to tie Messi at 49. So he's at 48. So I mean,
boo-hoo.
But I mean, he was the highest scorer in the Champions League with 15, and then behind him were the attacking trio of Liverpool with each had 10, which I found astonishing as well.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean it's crazy. It's that thing with like the tournament aspect of the Champions League. It gets a totally different game. Maybe suited their style of play better versus doing that over the long run.
Right, and I mean it's a very interesting thing to think about, right? Because Barcelona almost went undefeated. They lost the last game of the season by 1 goal, and that's an incredible feat for any club side. You know what I mean? For them to have almost become an invincible side, that would have been crazy too. So it's like, I think that Zidane resigning when he did was probably the best move because he probably saw his squad in decline. You had both Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale publicly saying that they wanted to leave minutes after they won the Champions League. So it's like, clearly that's
brats.
Clearly that's not a great sign.
Yeah.
When you have 2 of your best players come on and be like, I don't think I'll be here.
Not sure. Yeah.
So for Zidane to be like, I'm out, was probably the best time. Because I mean, for you to go out on a high, he has never had a single low in his Real Madrid coaching career. You know what I mean? Even as an assistant under Ancelotti, Zidane will go down as like the most perfect Real Madrid manager only because he didn't stay there long enough. Had he stayed another 2 years, they would have something to bitch about.
It'll be interesting, 2 things, to see where he ends up if he ever does come back, and to see who Real Madrid bring in next.
So let's answer that question. Where do you think Zidane goes next?
I personally think he's going to coach the French national team. He seems like a very patriotic guy to me, and it seems like the natural progression for him. Like, he's done it all at club level, even though it is with one team. He's kind of achieved everything he's had to achieve with his kind of lifelong love of a club. Now I think he wants to kind of prove it at an international level, which is a whole different stage. And I think that's his next move. And France, I will say, have a horrible coach now in Deschamps. So I think they will give him the boot following this World Cup, whether they win it or not, and they'll bring in the high-profile manager in Zidane.
Well, I think you make a good point. Zidane has won everything. I just sat here and thought about, like, okay, so he's won Euros. Yep. World Cup, check. Champions League as a player, check. Champions League as a manager, check. La Liga as a manager, check. La Liga as a player, checked. Like, all of these things,
Right.
he's checked every box. The
Right.
only thing that honestly, the only thing he's missing is a World Cup as a manager.
As
so
a,
it's
as a
like,
manager.
I think that's probably the most logical next step for Zidane. I agree with you. I don't think Deschamps is the right coach. I was watching a video that was going over the French lineup for the World Cup, and the French team is amazing. Left and right, they have players at every position that are astounding players. Like, they have probably some of the best midfielders, some of the best forwards. They have squad depth up the wazoo. In other words, everything that you possibly need to win a major tournament, they have. So then you keep thinking about what's the missing piece. You kind of have to start looking at the coach at some points, because when you have a squad loaded with talent from top to bottom at every position, yet, okay, sure, they made the Euro 2016 final, but they didn't show up for the final.
Right.
They didn't play very well.
Right.
They were beaten by what most people consider a pretty poor Portugal side that didn't even have Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think depending on how France do this World Cup, I think Zidane would probably be the absolute best choice to bring in.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see. I mean, we won't find out until, I think, post World Cup.
Yeah. He's in no rush. What's the point of deciding?
Yeah.
He could take a year off.
Yeah,
he could go do
definitely.
he can go do whatever he wants. Hang out for a while.
Yeah, do the Pep Guardiola. Just relax.
Do you think he ever goes to, say, Germany or England? He's still young. He's only 45, 50?
So it depends on what happens with his injury. So if the progression is he does go to international, I think he'll stay there for a cycle. A 4-year cycle, win or lose a World Cup, see what happens there. If they win a World Cup, I honestly see him just retiring, just being done. It's like, I've checked out, I've done it all. There's no point. That guy, he's reached every high as a in the sport.
Yeah.
So I don't see him really continuing on.
What do you do
if he loses it, I mean, maybe he goes and he kind of wants to do something in the footballing world still and manages another club. I don't know. It's a tough guy. He's like a very interesting figure to me. So I think he really does look like he'd be done after he's accomplished everything and go from there. But I don't know.
I mean, it's like that legacy thing, right? It's like you go out on a high.
Right.
There's like that's the best you can do.
Yeah.
Like, if you stay a little bit too long, you get bashed.
Right.
It will be interesting to see what happens with Real Madrid as a whole, though. With Zidane leaving, Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale publicly both stating that they're not sure that they're going to stick around. I wonder if this whole team just blows up and Real Madrid falls by the wayside for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, what comes up must come down, right?
Yeah.
So eventually they are going to have to hit a slump again.
Yeah.
But knowing Real Madrid, it doesn't last very long.
Yeah. Considering they always have money to spend. So.
Right. But okay, moving on, I'm going to bring up my topic now. And Colin Cowherd, he is hosts a radio show on Fox Sports, Fox Sports Network. He came out with his top 10 most famous sports athletes in the world. And let's just say that the list is pretty interesting. I'm going to read it off to you, and I'm going to want to kind of hear your ideas on it. Number 1, Tom Brady.
This is the most famous athlete.
Most famous athletes according to Colin. Tom Brady, number 1. 2, LeBron James. 3, Tiger Woods. 4, Steph Curry. 5, Cristiano Ronaldo. 6, Messi. 7, Aaron Rodgers. 8, Serena Williams. 9, Floyd Money Mayweather. 10, Roger Federer. So quickly with feedback, what do you think about that list?
Initial thoughts.
I
think that it's the most sheltered American view on sports I've ever heard, because you can't tell me that, okay, I get it. We live in a world where there's the internet, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You're connected to this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying there aren't fans of LeBron in, say, China or France or wherever it may be, but first of all, for you to even quantify the global impact that Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi have and not put them number 1 and number 2 on your list is already absurd. The fact that Neymar's not on that list is already absurd to me.
I thought that as well.
Because they already said that he's the most marketable soccer player, one of the most marketable athletes in the world, and probably the most marketable soccer player right now.
Yeah.
So it's that's already wrong. I mean, no one cares about American football outside of Americans.
Right.
I mean, sure, we love it so much that I get why you want to sit. And look, I'm sitting here. I own a Tom Brady shirt. I'm a very big Patriots fan. I love the Pats.
Right, it's not biased.
It's not biased.
Right.
I'm just telling you that there's no way in hell that Tom Brady is more famous than either Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo.
Could you give me a top 5? I don't want to make you do a top 10 unless you want to, but give me a top 5.
What I think is You know what's funny though? The fact that Roger Federer comes in at 10 is already absurd because he's super famous.
Honestly, I can understand almost all of these. Aaron Rodgers being at number 7 is freaking crazy, man.
That's absurd.
And look, and I don't want to I don't want to use stats, but I'm gonna kind of use stats, and my stat here is gonna be Instagram followers because it's like the one thing that everyone has, and it's a platform
I think
where.
that's a fair metric.
Okay, Tom Brady, 4.1 million.
Okay.
Cristiano Ronaldo, 127 million. This is followers. Messi, 92.3. Neymar, 93.8. LeBron James, 37.9. Serena Williams, 8.3. Aaron Rodgers, not even at 1 million followers. He's at 837,000 followers. For him to be on the list with these people is amazing.
And of
that
course,
Colin would think that.
We should also make a disclaimer. We don't know when these people joined Instagram, but
Right.
even so,
Yeah.
the numbers are so vastly different that
Oh my gosh.
I don't know, man. You can't tell me that LeBron James is more famous than Cristiano Ronaldo.
No. I would put LeBron James in my top 5.
Sure.
For sure.
For sure.
I think my top 5 would be something like Ronaldo, Neymar, Messi, LeBron. I want to say that probably Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods at 5. Because even though Tiger Woods has gone through a lot of iffy stuff in the recent years, he's still a guy that has so much power in sports. Like his name is, just synonymous with greatness, and like his numbers speak for themselves. I think I'd put him in my top 5 for sure. I wouldn't have one NFL player in my top.
No.
I'm trying to probably top 25. I think there are like 1 million soccer players out there that are more famous and have more of a global impact than any NFL player does.
I think the only NFL player I'd keep in my top 20 would be Tom Brady, but it would be like a 19.
I don't even know if in terms of famous, I don't even know if maybe Odell Beckham is more popular than him.
OBJ is.
He's all over the sports world. He's hanging out with Neymar. He's hanging out with Alaba. So I feel like he has more of a reach than Tom Brady does.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to think of it in terms of how good you are at the sport.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's not.
But like Odell Beckham, I feel like has more of a following in general than anyone in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's such a funny thing to think about because I think it's almost even skewed. Like, I don't even know if you can make a top 5 list with anybody other than soccer players. I think that a top 5 list of most famous athletes in the world will probably include 4 soccer players and maybe Roger Federer. I don't know. That's my thought process on that. And I think that, okay, even if you were to pick only one player from each sport, I still don't think the NFL makes it into the top 5.
Yeah.
I think that you would go, if you had to pick someone for soccer, it's a toss-up to me between Messi and Cristiano.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
Pick whichever one you pick, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
And then you go into, it's so difficult. It's such
Tennis has 2 stars, right? Serena Williams and Roger Federer. Even Nadal, I'd take Nadal.
You have Nadal.
Golf with Tiger Woods.
Yep.
Basketball, LeBron James, obviously.
Yep.
And we also think like a lot of the Instagram doesn't account for the Asian markets. Like basketball is huge in the Asian markets. So even honestly, James Harden, who's huge in Asia, like
that's because he plays for the Rockets.
Right.
And Yao Ming made the Rockets super famous in China.
Yeah, even Harden.
I see James Harden being on that list too. It's just such a funny. Going back to the original source here, it's like it's such a funny American sports topic to think like, the world cares so much more about football and this, and it's like, no, they don't. Like, I just wish people would step out of their little sheltered world and realize like how big the world really is. You got 7 point whatever billion people on this planet. Like, majority of them watch soccer.
Yeah.
How many of them really watch American football?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, in terms of global popularity, soccer is the most popular sport in the planet, and then right below that is basketball.
Right.
But it's like the gap is huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like.
Yeah, that's funny because they tweeted out this top 10, and the comments you can imagine are just hilarious. Like people are like, "Who is Aaron Rodgers?" Like just like crazy tweets. I think it's just so funny.
I don't even think Aaron Rodgers is top 5 most famous NFL players.
Yeah, I don't think he's like top 20 in the NFL. Honestly, like there are so many guys with just like big names, like celebrity status versus
you got J.J. Watt,
players.
Tom Brady, like all these other players that.
Aaron, it's just so funny to see him on the like a list of top 10 most famous athletes in the world.
Well, hopefully Colin Cowherd figures out what he's talking about at some point. And
hope he got chastised for this, in the studio. But
So moving on to our third topic, the MLS has awarded FC Cincinnati the next MLS franchise.
Yep.
So this has been pretty telegraphed for the past few months. They've been in constant talk, and they've been basically been trying to, since their inception, their goal has been to make it into the MLS. And they have actually been one of the most well-supported USL sides over the past couple of years. And we've seen this trend with other USL teams that have been promoted to the MLS, right?
Yep.
In terms of Orlando City, very well-supported when they were in the USL. Nashville, super well-supported in the USL. And then you also have, I'm blanking on it, but it's been a trend that's been emerging over a while. And, you know, they were able to get the bid because they finally got a stadium plan for downtown Cincinnati, and their fans have just been crazy. So I just want to get your thoughts on, you know, what you think, I guess, on like what you think about Cincinnati getting it.
Yeah.
Is it a good market? Do you think it's going to succeed there?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so I actually have a buddy who is from that area. Went to college with him, and he was so pumped up about it. I mean, like, they're real sports fans over there. Like, they really get behind their sports teams. I was watching their kind of reveal video for them being granted not access into the MLS, but them being awarded the MLS. Whenever Team USA plays there, it's one of the best, kind of like most supported games in the U.S. in a U.S. state or city. I think it's going to be great. Like, it's like one of those places where you're like, why would they have such rich not history but rich support? I think it's just one of those places that like really gets behind sports in general. So I'm pretty pumped to see it. I think it's cool. I'm not a big fan of their colors. I don't know if they're sticking with the blue and orange. I hate it.
I do not disagree.
I will not get behind them if that's their colors.
Well, you know what it is? I think that I actually have this weird thing where I look at a lot of soccer clubs and I'm like, yo, y'all all have kind of the same colors. So, for example, when Seattle first came on the scene and they were like lime green, and they were like one of the only clubs that like, played in like a limeish green, I was like, oh, that's cool, that's different, make yourself stand out. But then you have, like every club in the world is either blue, red, or whatever it is. But then I actually like the fact that Cincinnati, they are blue and orange, like these two ghastly, weird, interesting colors.
They work as colors, but I don't know. I think it just does not please me. I don't like. I think of Boise State when I think of that color pattern, and then I think of their field, and then I'm just like overload of colors.
Well, so the rendering for the stadium, or several of the renderings that have been kind of popping up for FC Cincinnati's future stadium, they have the outside basically similar to how the Allianz in Germany they change colors, but for Cincinnati the outside's going to be lit bright orange.
Oh wow.
So it looks like it's an astonishing thing to see. I think that a lot of times the impact that you have when you experience this kind of stuff, it's going to be crazy. You're walking up to the stadium, it's just this like orange lit stadium. I think it'd be really, really cool. I just think that like with soccer you have to have an identity. You have to like craft not only your history but also have an identity. Crests matter a lot, colors matter a lot, and I think that their colors aren't for everybody, but I think that if it's something that makes them wholesome, like it's a very true to them, I think it's a phenomenal thing. I don't know.
You wouldn't happen to know the significance of orange for them, would you?
I don't actually. I have no idea why they picked orange.
The Bengals are orange and black, right? So I'm thinking maybe there's some theme with the orange, but I don't know. I thought maybe you'd know.
Oh, it could be a thing.
We'll look that up.
Yeah.
Post-show.
So one thing I wanted to bring up is FC Cincinnati coming into Ohio to play, and on the on the flip side of this, you have all the issues surrounding the Columbus Crew. Yeah. This season they're down in attendance by a lot, and so a lot of people have been calling Columbus Crew supporters out on the internet, being like, "Hey, like you guys complain and bitch about how the team's might be moving to Austin, but you guys don't even pack your own stadium anymore." So it's this weird contrast where you have FC Cincinnati moving into a similar market to where Columbus existed. Yet for some reason, it seems like FC Cincinnati is, they're averaging 20, I think close to 20,000 people at every game, and this is for the USL.
Right.
Versus the Columbus Crew, who have a soccer-specific stadium in Columbus. It's downtown. Yet I think they're pulling in 7,000 people a game. So it's like, I don't know why the difference is there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's like small cultural differences that are like hard to pinpoint. It makes such a difference for why people get behind a sports team. I don't know the psychology behind it, but it is super weird. I mean, they're in like they're neighbors basically.
Basically,
you know what I mean?
They're not far.
Right. So it's interesting to see how one can be so well supported and the other not. I have no idea why that would be the case, but it is like something that people should research or something.
Yeah,
because
and I think it's something that people should keep an eye on, because I think a lot of it comes down to, like, I feel like FC Cincinnati, they made their fans feel welcome and part of something.
Yeah.
And then with Columbus, the owner's kind of like, all right, y'all, peace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that the involving fans, right? Making fans feel like they are part of something greater than just a team.
So just last thoughts on this. I mean, so the MLS has said that they want to get up to 28 teams by, I think, 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So as of right now, they have 24 announced teams, 3 of them being that they haven't even played yet.
Yeah.
FC Cincinnati, Miami, and Nashville. What are your thoughts on going up to 28 teams? Do you think it's where it's at? Do you think it's a good idea?
Yeah, it's a good number. I think the U.S. is so big that they do kind of deserve to have a more spread out, diverse kind of set of teams. It's nice to see the league kind of grow from being a small league. You never want to think of a league as being so like a tiny little league with only a few teams. It shows that there really is interest, especially as you look at some of the locations that stadiums are being built, and it shows that the diversity of the U.S. still really cultivates love for the game. So I think that's a good number. I mean, it seems like fairly standard for a league size,
especially in the U.S. I mean, I think that the point of it being such a big country, I think we do, like, the top, if they ever end up putting like a promotion relegation, I think that whenever if that ever happens, I think the top flight should still have about 30 teams, just because of how big the United States is.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's very different than England. Yeah, England, they have thousands of teams, but the top flight has 20. But the country is not very big.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., you have one of the biggest countries in the world.
Right.
You can support about 28, 30 teams and have everybody be happy.
Right, absolutely. I think that that'll cover more of the kind of general everyone in the U.S. once you get up to that 30 team range. So it'll be good to see. I think we as fans kind of want that. You never want to see a small league, I don't think. But I think it's good.
I think it's also interesting that they're finally starting to sort of double up, quote unquote, on markets. So, you have Columbus.
Yeah.
Or some people might say, hey, maybe they already know that Columbus is moving to Austin, so let's something in Ohio.
Something. Yeah, right.
So that's another thing to think about too. But all right, moving on to this week's main topic. This week we wanted to talk about music and its impact on soccer, and the reason why is the official World Cup song was released this week. It's by Will Smith, Nicky Jam, and I forget.
I don't know her name either.
It's a singer. I forget her name, but it was released this week. It's a okay song.
Yeah.
I didn't like it as much as.
Doesn't follow my top 5 World Cup songs, I don't think.
But we wanted to basically talk about it in terms of its impact on the game, why music is so important to soccer, because usually you don't necessarily think about it. You think about a sporting event, it is what it is, but music does play a huge role, especially when it comes to the World Cup. I think about, to me, by far the best World Cup song will always be Waka Waka for 2010.
That is the song that I think of when I think of the World Cup songs.
And I think that what I loved about that song is that you have a Colombian singer in Shakira who brought in African influences to create an absolute jam of a song for the first World Cup that was held in Africa. So it's like, that's I think that whoever organized all this, if it was FIFA, whoever it was, they did a great job, because the World Cup is something that brings so many people together, brings so many cultures together, that for them to be like, all right, well, so we need a World Cup song. How are we going to do this? All right, let's grab Shakira, one of the most famous singers, artists ever, and let's have her create a song that embodies so many different aspects of culture to make a song.
Right. Yeah, that song really has a lot of meaning for me because I was there for the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. So when I think of that song, it really brings me back to kind of that experience. But even so, like, you talk to people who watch that World Cup, like, that song is just ingrained in their minds. Like, that, everybody knows that, like, the Waka Waka, he understands that, what that beat means, and, like, immediately associates it with the World Cup. So that goes to show that, like, I think that obviously these songs are a big marketing scheme. Not a scheme, but they're a way to bring people in the sport a little bit more. But it works so well, right? When the song is executed properly. This song, I don't know if it'll do so well, but these songs really kind of attract people, and especially during a season where you kind of want all the eyes on your sport. They can really attract, like, what is this song for? Like, how does this blah, 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 gets people interested not only in the sport, but the culture and the references that are being made in the songs.
Right, and I think that even though it is a marketing tactic in a way, and I think it's more meant to kind of mark an event, right? It's supposed to be this anthem for an event, so that every time you hear it, you're brought back to that particular moment. Right. And if I ever hear that song, the first thing I think of is soccer. Second thing I think of is the 2010 World Cup. It's just like, instantly you think about that. And that's, I think, maybe just how humans work. Like, you hear, it's like when you have, you smell something from your childhood, all of a sudden it brings you back. Right. Same things, like if you hear a song, it brings you back. And I think that, it's powerful having those emotions be attached to it. And I think that was probably the most well-executed World Cup song. Versus, you also had the 2014 World Cup song with Pitbull, which was,
Yeah, again, it wasn't like my. I just think that nothing has beat in Waka Waka yet.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I do think that. But when you hear, We Are One, which was the official World Cup song of 2014, even though it was sung by Pitbull, which I just never understood.
Yeah, Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide. It still does sort of bring me back to the 2014 World Cup to an extent. Right. Not as much as, say, Waka Waka does for 2010. But this new song, it just doesn't scream soccer to me. It doesn't really scream like... Because usually in these songs, some of the themes are coming together culturally or about the sport. And I don't think that this new song, which we keep referring to as this new song, but it's called, I don't even know Live It Up is the name of the song. Yeah. And it seems more like an anthem that you might hear on the radio to just like, live today, today's the day, and stuff like that. But, at least these other songs, in Waka Waka, it was bringing in African influences and, using some of the, like the Vuvuzela is in the song. Right. So it's like bringing you back to the 2010 World Cup. And then the 2014 World Cup, it's about, we are one, come together. We're all celebrating one event, which is, along the same lines. But then, with Live It Up, it's really just kind of like, live it up, like let's do our best.
I just think of it more as like a hype man song. Like, you just want to kind of get the crowd excited, but it doesn't really do justice in unifying the fans of the sport. Right.
And I will be honest with you, I don't think there's any Russian influence. Not that I would even know what that would be like, but at
taking
least
shots of vodka.
But it just seems that with this new song, it's just like, what? Let's just grab three random artists.
Will Smith. When was the last time he did a song?
I don't even know this man was still making music.
No, jeez. Like, it just came out of nowhere.
And then, you got Nicky Jam, which is a pretty popular, up and coming, I guess. I don't want to call him up and coming. He's been around for a while, but he's starting to maybe hit like that final level of like
more mainstream markets.
More mainstream. Yep. And then you have her name is Era Istrefi. No idea where she's from. No idea where she came from.
Heard of her.
And it's just like, I think that they were just like, crap, we need a song. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
All right, let's call up three random people. All right, who do you got? Will Smith. Well, he still makes music?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, let's bring him in. It's like, I don't get it, but...
It's also interesting to point out that you may be thinking, oh, you guys, a few episodes back, you brought up a Jason Derulo World Cup song. Well, what's interesting is that Coca-Cola also always comes out with a World Cup song, and Jason Derulo was their artist for their World Cup song. So there are usually two World Cup songs that fly around, one that is FIFA sponsored and one that is Coca-Cola sponsored. The Jason Derulo song, again,
is another one that's just
very far from the mark of being like captivating.
But here's the thing. In the Jason Derulo song Colors, it actually talks more about like your flag and your culture, your heritage.
They tried to connect something. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
then with Live It Up, it's just like you said, a hype man
Yeah.
song. And it doesn't call to mind memories or thoughts about soccer. It just, brings me to, all right, it's just a hype man song with 3 random people. And the Jason Derulo one, they did try it. Of course, I don't think they succeeded very well, because I also don't think Jason Derulo should have been involved.
Yeah.
But they tried more to incorporate more cultural aspects of it, I guess.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know if I also just haven't been hearing either song very much. I don't feel like in past World Cups, I don't know if it was because maybe I was watching more TV and kind of during like SportsCenter coverage of the World Cup, they would play these songs a lot. But I don't know about you, but personally, I haven't really heard these songs much.
Right. I haven't heard of it either. I mean, my initial gut reaction to that would be that maybe that today in 2018, everybody is so out there with how they listen to music.
Yeah.
Not many people listen to the radio still.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, maybe I haven't even seen anything on Spotify, which is like, you would think like,
they have a World Cup
event. Let's make a World Cup playlist or something like that. I mean, of course, we're still about 2 weeks out, so it's maybe still slowly coming up, but we'll have to see how this song impacts this World Cup.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a thing that, like you said, when we're watching the World Cup, it might be played in between commercials, or I'm sorry, in commercials and in between games and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see the impact that this song has on this World Cup. But where I wanted to take this next bit is just outside of World Cup anthems, to talk about how, I wanted to bring up, the Champions League anthem.
Yeah.
Right? This is a song that was created specifically for the Champions League, that anytime I even hear maybe, 2 seconds of it, it brings instant memories of the Champions League, of soccer, and it gives me goosebumps, because you're just like, all right, this is the song that is soccer, like, distilled.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I don't know what word they're saying, it's just a bunch of, like,
it sounds like chorusy, but like who knows what's actually being said.
Yeah, but it's just, it brings, it's that whole emotional aspect. It's, these songs were created to mark an event, but what it ends up happening is it creates an emotional connection with the sport, and it ends up almost like elevating it, because I think that, and if you ever were to watch the way I compare it is, if you watch a Europa League game with a Champions League game, you can see the difference and the effect that the Champions League anthem has, because they actually sing that anthem in the stadium over the speakers before they do national anthems for each side. So it's like, it really marks the game, and I don't think they do that in the Europa League, and even if they did, it would just be like a cheap knockoff in a way. Yeah. So it's like, it adds a little bit of prestige to the tournament.
That's what I was going to say. It gives the tournament a sense of real like royalty, almost like winning that really does mean something.
It like almost elevates it from like a regular sporting event to like this massive
right.
Like,
it sets a tone. I mean, just like what music does for movies, right? Music is so important in movies. You can set suspense, happiness, whatever message you're trying to convey. And with these songs, you're doing the same thing. The Champions League did an amazing job with that anthem to kind of set it apart from any club tournament in the world. I think that song plays such an important role in that, because it does make it feel super royal and regal, and it's amazing. Like you said, what that can do, just listening to 2 seconds of it, you automatically know what it's about, but you just get this tingling sensation of like, damn, Champions League, it's back. It's a very exciting feeling.
It's almost like a gateway back into your emotions.
Right.
You're just like, as soon as you hear it, your mindset changes to, oh man, it's going to be an amazing game. Even if it's like 2 random teams in the Champions League, you still like, you hear that song and it brings back these emotions. It sets the stage for this grand event, versus if they didn't do that, it would just be another soccer match.
Right. I think that it's super interesting, because going back to when I said that these things are marketing, or like they're kind of like marketing schemes, but they're also much more important than that, in the sense that they bring together fans of different teams, clubs, nations, to all kind of believe in one thing, is that we are all soccer fans, right? I think that when you hear these songs that become popular, the Champions League song, you automatically, I mean, if I'm singing it, you're singing it, the next guy's singing it, we're all supporting different clubs, but we all know, like, we love this sport. So there is much more. I mean, they are trying to convey this message of like, hey, we're all behind this sport, and we want this song to kind of represent that.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting to think that, you know, you have people who watch the Champions League in South America, in Europe, in North America, in everywhere across the world, and for everybody who comes from for all these people who come from different cultural backgrounds to be able to hear the same song and have a very similar reaction is phenomenal, and
Right.
it just adds, like we said, more prestige to the tournament, and it makes, I think that might be one of the reasons why, you know, it's held in such high regard. You know, of course, it's not just the music; it's everything that goes into it. But
Right.
the music is because it plays so directly into your senses. It really, really captures emotion.
Right.
That's how you captivate people with sport. It's
Right.
through emotion. And if it's, you know, soccer is already emotional as it is with, you know, last minute winners or a last ditch tackle, goal line clearances. These are all emotional things. But to add another layer on top,
Right.
just, you know, boosts it so much.
Right. And you're thinking about like cultural relevance, like how many things on the internet have you seen where people are like, maybe the Champions League song plays at a wedding, right? I've seen funny instances where people, now this is becoming a trend, you get tattoos of like sound waves, and then if you like there's an app that I guess you take a picture, it'll play the song.
Oh, wow.
People have gotten the tattoo of sound waves of the Champions League, you know,
nice.
so it goes to show that these things become much more than just for the tournament. They actually have real cultural significance to people,
Right.
Which I find amazing, because like you're taking something that's supposed to be behind this tournament, but now it's become this song that gets played in memes and soccer videos, a million YouTube videos, this and that. I find that to be one of the most fascinating things behind kind of the power of music and what it does for the sport.
Definitely. And I mean, it's like, if you think about it, it's the same effect that you have with the national anthem. Any American who hears the national anthem, everybody stands
Right.
up. You know, a lot of times, like, at least, you know, a lot of times it seems like I've been at sporting events where people have been kind of assholes and been talking during the national anthem and stuff like that. But at the same time, you know, it's a very similar aspect, right? You hear the national anthem come on, you're going to stand up,
Right.
take your hat off. It's an emotional experience.
Right.
And it's interesting how that can be translated from, you know, these songs aren't for a specific nation in particular, but they are for an event or for something that we hold in such high regard, like the
Right.
World Cup.
Right.
You know, despite the fact that I haven't lived in Brazil since I was a kid, anytime I hear the Brazilian national anthem,
Yeah.
I get goosebumps. I'm
Right.
ready for it. Like
Right.
you know, I'm about my country, and it's
Mhm.
just like, it's cool that can step outside of just representing a country, but to represent a sport, represent an event is really
Right.
cool too.
Yeah. Would you like to see kind of a similar anthem be made for the World Cup?
And have it be played
Just
over every
one.
single.
Right. Do you think it makes sense?
I don't think so, because the World Cup should, because of the nature of the World Cup, I don't think so. I think that the Champions League, that anthem fits really well, because it's always the same countries that are participating in the Champions League, and it's always in Europe, and it very much envelops a set standard of what they're doing, versus the World Cup is very fluid. Every 4 years, the World Cup is different, and I think that's what sets the World Cup apart from regular competitions that happen every year.
Absolutely.
It's because it happens every 4 years. It's an event. It's this you know, really truly global event, and it's held in already such high regard because it's only 4 years. I think that, and on top of it being so held only for every 4 years, but also because you're bringing in different aspects every time. So, for example, the 2010 World Cup, first World Cup held in Africa, I think they did an amazing job, like I already said, about creating an anthem for that World Cup.
Right.
And so then the next year when you go into, or the next World Cup when you go into Brazil, I think they actually could have played a little bit more on the Brazilian
Yeah,
aspect of it
absolutely.
for the anthem, which
Yeah.
I think they missed out on.
Yeah.
And especially this year with the 2018 World Cup, there's, as far as I can tell, zero Russian influence on it.
Yeah.
I actually think they just need to do a better job with these anthems
Yeah.
because they're so important, and
Yeah.
they do get like etched into your mind
Right.
anytime
I mean,
you
it
think about it.
becomes synonymous with the World Cup.
Right. I think that I would love to see it be different every 4 years, but I think that it needs to be held in the utmost highest
Right.
regard, and they really have to hit it out of the park every time, which I know is difficult, but
Especially if you have 4 years to work on it.
yeah.
You know, I mean, we know that the country's coming up. Like, you have, you can make decisions pretty far in advance, and obviously it's artist dependent, but you definitely have a lot of time to go through different iterations of the
Right.
song and make sure you're really hitting the nail on the head and sampling a little bit of culture from these countries.
Well, so my thought process going back to your question right now is, you know, the Champions League anthem is played before the national anthems for any or after the national anthems for. I don't. Do they even sing national anthems in the Champions League?
Nah, I don't know. If they do, I'm not sure because like I think
They
they
probably don't
cut
even
out.
show it.
They cut out. They don't
Yeah.
really show that part. I don't. No, I don't think so. I know in the
Maybe.
Libertadores they play the anthems of the countries playing, but I'm not sure if that's the same
the
for
Champions
the Champions League.
Yeah, I actually don't think so either. Now that I think about it, but I guess it might be too much singing
Yeah.
if they were to do in a World Cup. Okay, so Brazil's playing Germany. We're going to do
Yeah.
the Brazil the national anthem and the German national anthem, and then we're going to sing the World Cup national anthem.
Yeah.
I actually think that weirdly in a World Cup, the national anthems take on the same kind of role as the Champions League anthem does
Yeah.
in Champions Leagues because, you know, if you're supporting your club, or I'm sorry, if you're supporting your country, you're from that country, you know the anthem,
Yeah.
you know, and for you, it's like almost like a battle cry for
Right.
that
Absolutely.
team.
Absolutely.
So it's an interesting topic. I just think it's an interesting idea. I just think that they need to really hit it out of the park every 4 years because
Right.
it's an important thing.
Absolutely.
You know?
No, I agree. I think that maybe in the next World Cup they'll do a little better job of.
Well, I think the next World Cup will be marred with plenty of other issues.
Yeah, well,
you know,
that's. I think they need to do a good job then to.
try to mitigate those disasters.
Yeah, at least cover up a little bit of the
No,
bad
for
things
sure.
happening.
For sure. But moving on from like the anthem aspect of it, I kind of wanted to talk about music as a whole,
Yeah.
right? And where we see music really in soccer is a lot of in the fan chants,
Absolutely.
especially in the English Premier League, and it's a lot of times what happens is these supporters will come together, pick a famous song that pretty much everybody knows, and change the words
Yeah.
and create chants. You
Right.
know, if you're a Manchester United supporter, you know, like Giggs will tear you apart again. It's like that. It's from a Joy Division song, which is like Love Will Tear You Apart.
Yeah,
And so a lot of times you're getting these super famous songs that are being adapted to these chants, these singing during the game. And I wanted to get your perspective as to why they use popular songs instead
Yeah.
of just kind of like making up their own.
yeah. I think when you're getting a popular song, you get the benefit of everybody knowing the melody to it. So when you're coming up with chants, it normally is pretty. How do you say it, on the spot. You're coming up with a chant, everybody knows the tune. It's pretty easy to then just come up with words that kind of fit into that pretty well. So and when you have a popular song, you know everybody likes that tune. So they're more adept to getting behind it when it's being sung in a stadium.
Right. I think
Yeah, I think that bodes really well because then you don't have. Also, you don't know if your fans are really musically adept, right? So if they're going to be coming up with their own little melodies, they might not come out so
Yeah.
well. So having a tune that they can lay that is the foundation for their chants really helps them just kind of figure out the words, figure out some funny sayings to come up with, and go from there.
Yeah, I think the interesting part is, like, you know, in most stadiums you have, let's say, anywhere between 40,000 and 60,000 people, and you don't know these people on
Right.
a personal basis,
Right.
but these chants travel
Right.
because they're popular songs. Everybody already knows the tune. All they got to do is learn the words, which if you already know the tune, the words are easy,
Right.
you know? And so I think it's just probably a very easy and interesting way to really get people behind each other and be like, all right, let's make a chant. And you know, you have some of the most famous songs being used. Like, you have songs by the Beach Boys and Elvis, and, you know, even like the White Stripes, like Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes, gets used in chants as well. And
Right.
it's interesting that in England you have several clubs and clubs across the board who all use the same songs as their chants. And so it's really interesting to see how these very popular songs make it from, you know, you have, let's say, for example, you might have Manchester United using that Joy Division song to talk about Giggs, but you also have another club in the second division
Right.
using the same song, but just a different player.
Completely different words.
Different
Yeah.
words, but it's just the same melody?
Medley?
Melody? I don't know. Melody. And so it's really cool how it just like transcends outside of just like this popular cultural thing, and it really impacts soccer as well.
Oh yeah, I to me, chanting and music in stadium is one of the most amazing things because you don't really see it in any other sport, right? Think about American sports or maybe some even other sports where the sounds that are being produced are all sounds that are being produced by the stadium, right? So they'll be playing the clapping noise. I think about in basketball, they play the tap, 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 like the clapping noise, or they'll be fabricating horns and things like that. Whereas in soccer, it's almost unlike any other sport where the sounds and atmosphere is being built completely by the fans. It's almost shunned upon to hear music being played like during a match, whereas in other sports you hear. I mean, I was watching what playoff series was, I don't even remember, but they were playing rap songs when the team was attacking. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? To me, where like fans should be the ones creating that energy.
Yeah, it shouldn't come down from ownership to be like, all right, so we're gonna play. What's that new? I don't know. What's the new Chance the Rapper song? Let's throw that in the stadium. Like, no, you have to allow the fans to create that atmosphere.
Right.
And I think that in soccer, it plays chanting and singing is such a huge part of the atmosphere. And people talk about how intimidating it is when you walk into a stadium and you have 70,000 people just chanting and yelling at you.
Yeah.
And it's not just yelling that's unorganized. The best part about chanting in music in stadiums is that it's organized. It's 70,000 voices at once singing one song or things along those lines. Where I've been to Patriots games. I've been to many Celtics games. Yeah. And there's no camaraderie within fans at those things. Like I say it pretty much. I'm pretty sure this is my mantra every week. In America, we don't experience sports. It's a spectacle for us. It's like the same thing as sitting at home watching TV. Right. You don't live through these events. Versus if you go to a live soccer game, it's very different. Yeah. You're part of the experience, which I think is what sets it apart. Yeah. And so, for music to play such a huge role in that, it still hits on all the same notes as when we were talking about the World Cup songs. It's emotional. It brings up memories. It brings up and a lot of times these songs are used to commemorate great players for your club. Yeah. To this day, Manchester United supporters still sing about Cristiano Ronaldo, despite the fact that he's won.
Eric Cantona, these guys
Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Roy Keane. You become legends through song, and I think that's more of a human element because that's happened with so many other things. Like people get memorializing songs for other things, and now you have these sports icons being forever remembered because of these songs.
Yeah, I think it's super interesting that you bring up the Celtics because it really brings up a stark contrast between music and these different sports. And the Celtics are seen, especially now during these playoff series, you're seeing like Philadelphia players came off. For anyone that doesn't follow basketball, Celtics beat Philadelphia in a playoff series. It came out and said, Boston is one of the hardest places to play in because the fans make it so loud and hard to really listen. As a fan watching from TV, it might be exciting when you're in the stadium, but I can't hear. I mean, I hear a little bit, but it's not that constant action. This is coming from someone who's been to a rivalry game in Brazil between Atlético and Cruzeiro. You feel that, right? Yeah. That's music being sung throughout the entire game. That's scary. I mean, if these basketball players were to play in that stadium and see what that's really like, it's almost a completely different mindset, right? So it's super interesting to me to see that like the Celtics are seen as one of the more aggressive fan bases for what they do, but the Celtics chants are like just like F you, blah, blah, blah. It's not song. It's not these things that are coming into really directly kind of either praising a player or hating on a player.
Yeah, I think that out of all of the NBA supporters, the Celtics are by far the best. Like I've been to games where the entire garden has chanted at a single player, but they are 1 out of 30 or 28 teams in the NBA.
And how many of those other loud teams are loud just because the Jumbotron is telling them to be? Yeah, right? It's a complete. You don't never see that in soccer, whether that be in England or Brazil or wherever it may be. Fans don't need that. It's a completely different culture.
They sing, they do their thing. It's very interesting.
One thing I find amazing, too, is that the songs don't only have to be when your team is doing well, either. I mean, how many funny songs do you have, like, our team is fucking shit, blah, 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 kind of making fun at their own situations, whether they're playing well or not. The fans can express emotions and express how they're feeling about their clubs through song.
Well, one of my absolute favorite chants was I think it was like Leicester versus Liverpool several years back, and like Leicester were losing 4-1, and the entire Leicester support is now singing, "We're gonna win 5-4. We're gonna win 5-4." And like I don't know, there's 15 minutes left or whatever. Yeah. And I think that it's such a big contrast to American sports. If your team is losing in American sports, you're quiet. The stadium's quiet. No one's chanting. No one's doing anything. Yeah, and so yet the difference is that what people don't realize is that the impact that fans have on the actual players is immense.
Yeah.
You feed off the energy,
Yeah.
you feed off the crowd. So if you have a club that when they're losing get no support,
Yeah.
then clearly they're going to lose.
Yeah.
They have nothing to play for.
Yeah.
But if you have a team or you have a team on the pitch and your entire stadium is singing for you, even when you're losing,
Yeah.
that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And like I said, it always comes back to the emotional response out of music and song and coming together and chanting. And I think that that's something that is very, very unique to soccer because even, and I don't want to say it's just an American sports thing, because even in, say, like tennis, tennis is super popular across the world. No one's chanting or yelling in a tennis match, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, it's frowned upon
Yeah.
to make any noise. I think it's like one of those golf things where
I
you
guess
can
that
only
might not be
you can only clap when they're like when there's a good play.
Yeah.
But in between sets, I don't know if they're even allowed to. Might get kicked out of.
Probably.
Get kicked out.
Might not be the best comparison, but I just wanted to show how unique it is to soccer, how much of a role music and chanting does play.
My question to you is: do you think that same culture is creeping into the U.S. in the MLS and kind of fan culture here?
I think so. I think that you see in the MLS a lot of a lot of people do bash it because a lot of people think that they're just trying to be copies of Europe, and you do have some people who I remember reading articles of people like chanting with like fake English accents.
Yeah,
and it's like, dude, you don't have to just bite what these people in the Premier League do.
Yeah.
Like there are so many other countries in the world with soccer teams that do the same thing. Like when we talk about, like, we're using the English Premier League as an example because we all know American songs and English songs. It's easier for us to talk about, but anywhere in the world they do the same thing. Clubs in Brazil do the same thing. Clubs across the world they do the same thing. They'll come together, they'll sing songs, they have chants. It's not unique to just England. So I think that in America, what we need to do as a soccer fan base here is be original. We have some of the best music coming out of America. Why not take some of these rap songs that are super popular? Let's adapt them to the MLS.
And they're beats that very easily can be made into chants. A lot of times. So.
Or what I'd love to see too, like an EDM inspired chant, right?
Absolutely.
Like you have these like amazing songs by like Tiesto, Marshmello, whoever it is. But like let's adapt that to the MLS. Like we don't have to be a ripoff of the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think you have really great fan bases, and even calling back to Cincinnati, like they have a phenomenal fan base. What I think is missing is we need to take initiative and be like, all right, let's make something American. Like let's grab American songs, adapt them to our clubs, send out WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, Facebook group messages, get everybody on board and do it. I know that some clubs do. I know Portland Timber supporters sing all the time, and Seattle supporters sing pretty often. I think the only issue is that it's, for a lot of people anyway, it doesn't feel authentic because it's like, all right, you're taking chants that you heard in England and you're trying to adapt it with these, maybe it's not that way anymore. But a lot of times people have complained about like, well, why are we trying to adapt just like this faux English thing?
Make it American.
Make it American.
Accept what we are. And where the league's at, and kind of just do your thing. I think that a lot of times too, Americans get bashed for their chants from outside world. I think that just let it be. Do what you want to do, make the chants you want to chant, make it American, and don't worry about what the world's going to say. And I mean, if Americans like it, then Americans like it. That's what they have to really care about.
So here's one that I think is funny. I actually really like the "I believe that we will win" chant because it gets me hyped. But like people bash on it constantly. They're like, "Oh, really? That's the most original thing you can come up with." But like, I like it.
I think so too. I think the first couple of times I heard it, I was like, damn, this is taking a while to build up. But once it builds up, it's like, damn, this is intense. Like this really is pretty cool. I think a lot of times with chants too, you have to experience them live. It's a totally different thing to hear it on TV versus being in the crowd and experiencing kind of that euphoria that everyone else is experiencing. So I think that if you haven't gone out to watch an international match or watch your local MLS club or local club that may have chants, go and see and experience that firsthand before you kind of bash it, because the feeling of it live is completely different than being at your TV and be like, this song sucks, it's not really good. So I think that people should kind of get that firsthand experience.
And the thing about the U.S. with music too is that every part of the U.S. has like iconic musical styles, right? So let's pretend, or for example, in Nashville, I would love to see them adapt country music for their chants, for their songs. Have country music playing before games.
Bring the yodel kid there.
Bring the yodeling kid. Like, let's get the yodeling kid involved with the Nashville Soccer Club. You know what I mean? Versus you also have like for Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta has this like, you know, amazing base of hip hop. You have you know, Outkast and all. You know, if you listen back to like our Atlanta episode, all of these amazing artists that came out of Atlanta, let's adapt their songs to chants. Like, let's take some of their most popular songs and make them chants. You know what I mean? Be locally ingrained with the culture. You know, you have, I don't know, like, you know, if you're up from Seattle or Portland area, you know, grunge rock in the 90s was huge. Why not adapt some Nirvana songs to be chants in your for your club?
Absolutely.
Like, be authentic. Be who we are.
Yeah, I'd love to hear a country chant.
That would be amazing. Like, I don't know how it would work.
I wonder what. But yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, so much of our nation's regions are so completely different when it comes to music and what they're producing. It would be so cool to see these different regions come up with different chants, different beats, different melodies that are not unlike anything we've ever heard anywhere else. So that, I mean, we'll see. Hopefully.
Well, I think about it this way: is that, like, you know, country music is so iconic to Nashville. Like, if you think country music, you're gonna think, okay, Nashville. Like, that's like, it's such an integral part of who they are as a people that, like, if you're gonna have a soccer club that its name is Nashville Soccer Club and you're representing Nashville, if you don't have country music, you messed up. Like, you're already losing. You know what I mean? Like, especially like because you're like, it's so ingrained in that area's culture. Like, let it seep in. Let it be part of your club. Yeah. And so,
what do you think about? I know some clubs, and this has been more in Europe, have started implementing like song sheets for fans. Are you behind that? Like, if that were to come into the MLS, like maybe fans don't want to take the first step, or they don't understand the culture yet for the sport. Maybe Nashville fans aren't really behind that yet. Are you behind the team promoting these songs, even if it is forced, like not forced upon, but it is kind of team promoted? Or do you think that it should just be completely fan driven, like if they don't come up with a song for the next 2 years, then don't force it on them?
So I'm along the lines of, I don't like that. I don't think a club should be the one to not necessarily dictate but guide this aspect. I think that what Portland does with their supporters group, in other words, the Portland Timbers allow the supporters groups to basically do whatever they want. Timbers Army is allowed to, they have a very free range in the majority of the things that they do. You know what I mean? With the TIFOs, they have some that are a little bit more on the risque side. Of course, the MLS might not show that on TV, but the atmosphere at the stadium is different. You know, you're there, and the Timbers Army is given pretty free reign. What I would love to see in an ideal world would be groups like the Timbers Army should be the ones leading this charge, because they're the ones on the ground. They're the fans. They're the ones interacting with people on a day-to-day basis. I think that if the Timbers Army were to create a song sheet and send it out via WhatsApp, send it out via Facebook group message, whatever it is, that's different than the Portland Timbers being like, oh, these are the songs we want you to sing. Or, you know, because a lot of times it can be a little censored. Like, you have these clubs who are trying to cater to the biggest population, so they're going to be like, oh, we're not going to swear in these songs.
Kid-friendly.
Let's make it kid-friendly, family-friendly. And it's like, you can't dictate that. And so for example, Manchester United does it, then they send out some song sheets every once in a while, and I don't like that.
I think fans don't like, normal fans don't like that, like the ones that are actually from the area really hate it. Outside fans may not really understand the like cultural connotations behind it, but I know that like the real Reds, as we'll call them, do not like the song sheets at all.
Right, but you know what it is? I think that a lot of these bigger clubs, they are in such areas that they become tourist attractions in and of themselves.
That's it, and that's become that commercialization marketing, make it all family friendly, which can have a role, but I'm on the same page where I don't think that they should be. I think everything should be fan driven. Fans are more creative than the guys that are working on these PG-13 or PG versions of chants. So I think that we should stay away from the organizations running it kind of playing these songs.
I think that even on a bigger scale, I think that, you know, clubs shouldn't dictate to fans, because without fans, you don't have a club. Like, you can, in America, it's very different, where a franchise is put in place and the league controls a lot of things and the fans are seen as customers, versus in reality, though, all of sports, without fans, there is no sport. If no one shows up to watch the game, you're not going to be able to pay your players, you're not going to be able to pay the staff. So when you realize that fan culture is it has to be driven by the fans and it can't be cultivated via ownership, because you have to realize that without fans, you don't have anything. And so by trying to tighten the leash and trying to get them to do what you want, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to let them be who they are, let them express themselves who they are with their cultural, everything that is them should be your club. There's a reason that clubs are named after cities,
Right.
because it's for those people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Manchester United originally was for the people of Manchester.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it
Mhm.
seems a little self-explanatory,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
it's true.
Absolutely.
And so, I don't know. I think that I would, like I said, I would love to see a lot more fan-driven singing and chanting in the MLS. Not that there isn't now, but I think we need to take a step into what is iconic for our region, what's iconic for our city, how can we integrate that with
Yeah.
our chants, how can we integrate that with our tifos, our displays, our everything
Right.
should be culturally significant.
Amen to that. I mean, I think I have nothing else to add on to that. I agree completely.
Probably a good spot to stop as
Yeah.
well.
Absolutely.
Well, alrighty then. Well, there you have it, guys. Another amazing episode of Culture FC in the books. We really hope you enjoyed this one. It was really interesting to get to dive into not only World Cup songs, but also anthems and how chants and anthems really play a role into the experience you can have watching, whether on TV or in the stands. If you're in an MLS supporters group out there, let's get some more original American songs and chants out, guys. Let's come together, make some more culturally relevant songs. I think that's enough, and we'll catch you next week.